Hey guys, this is the Patriot Pilot. Just coming to you from Honolulu. We have a little problem here. There's my uniform. But yeah, we have a little problem. We had a little rip in the trailing edge flap on the right hand wing. So I refused the airplane because there was a 4-inch tear in the metal completely through the flap. So they wanted me to take it back, and I said, what, over the Pacific? Only 2,281 miles? Can't make too many stops over the Pacific. But, okay, to the actual content of this video. So there's a lot of little dirty secrets in aviation that most of the general public doesn't know. And one of them probably is the mandatory 65 age retirement. Okay, so I heard from a different source too that they actually, a CEO went out golfing with one of the FAA head chiefs, and the age 60 rule came up because the CEO didn't like paying for all the senior pilots that made so much money, and so they instituted the age 60 rule. So I've heard that several times, and you know, if you talk to a lot of people, they go, well, there could be medical issues, it could be all this issues. So that's how the age 60 rule came around. And just I don't know, less than 10 years ago, they raised it to age 65. And that's probably the reason why there hasn't been any aviation accidents since 2009. But starting in the year 2020, 50% of all the senior pilots are retiring. That means out of about, I don't know, depends on who you count, I'd say just use a figure of 50,000 pilots. Half of those pilots are literally turning over. So 25,000 pilots over the course of 5 years, and the other statistic is actually 75% of the industry is retiring in 10 years. That means almost the whole entire experience pool of experienced pilots that actually know what they're doing is retiring, and 50% have already retired. That's why there's an uptick in accidents. That's just basically the bottom line. So you got the least experienced pilots flying the commuters, so that's how the accidents happen. And they're forcing upgrades to some of these young captains that don't even want it. I mean, they are either you upgrade or you're fired. That's not a good policy, especially if they don't feel comfortable upgrading because they want to learn how to fly the airplane. So that last Toronto one I heard, okay, that was a sim instructor getting a currency ride. Well, okay, I guess he doesn't fly too much on the airplane, which is not too good. And that was a female pilot with a restricted ATP. Whoa. In one of the probably one of the worst situations you can be, in a crosswind with an icy runway, gusting winds, you really got to know what you're doing. I mean, 1 second could be the difference between life and death. As they proved that 1 second. So if they would have done a little different technique, they probably wouldn't have balled the airplane up, but they would have had a really hard landing. But that was an extremely hard landing. The Southwest pilot that did a go around, so the Southwest dudes, they were probably experienced pilots, because guess what? When I'm landing, I'm looking all the way down the runway to see if anybody's crossing it, for sure. And when I'm about to taxi across the runway, if the FO and I are not in agreement that we are cleared across the runway, we call ATC up again to make sure, and I look down the landing runway threshold to see if anybody's landing, because there are too many runway incursions. And the big one was in Tenerife in the Canary Islands when two 747s hit each other. Wow, that was the biggest disaster in the world. They killed like 500 people. Wow, because the KLM captain wanted to take off and he didn't have the right clearance. You don't want to do that. So my goal for all of aviation is, if they don't make a movie out of me like they did Sully did a great job. Matter of fact, he deserves a movie made out of him because he was in a really tough position. But you know what? I actually look at birds when I take off. And the last couple of flights I've had, almost hit a couple of birds, but we were on the runway, so it didn't matter. So if we squash a couple of birds, we just do a bird strike, and the maintenance guys come out and take a look at it. They sign it off, and we're good to go. But these are some of the dirty secrets in aviation, U.S. aviation, going on right now. Now, you got to say that the U.S. pilots are the best trained pilots in the world. Okay? So we have literally two captains in there. The first officer has his type rating, and the captain has his type rating. Well, in all the other countries, that's not required. That happened because of the Colgan Air crash in Buffalo. So they changed all the rules with the FAA. So I'm kind of doing this all off the top of my head. So when the Colgan Air accident happened, they rewrote pretty much all the rules for aviation, all the rest rules, because I believe the female officer, she had about 700 hours, what I remember. She was actually sick, and since they were paying her so little, she couldn't afford a hotel room. So my story, my backstory is in '96, I got started with Northwest Airlink, and myself and the flight attendant got paid the same $15 an hour. However, she got her training and lodging paid for. I had to pay $2,000 for lodging and $10,000 for training, and they refused to give me the type rating because they didn't want me qualified to move on to the next level of flying. So I literally went to the Saab 340 training with about 2,100 hours, and they refused to give me the type rating for the Saab 340. So that was pay to play, basically. Pay for a job so you can move ahead in aviation. That's why there were not too many pilots, because it cost a lot of money to get your licenses. I would say $120,000 for your first 7-month course, and then you have to fly to build time to 1,500 hours where you can get your ATP. Well, you know, after you pay all that $120,000 plus and then take a lousy salary, which some of those guys are still only making $20 an hour, 30. Like I said, I refused an airplane, and some guys wouldn't refuse it, but you know, we're going over the Pacific, and that's a long flight with no landing. Well, there's a landing place, but it's pretty wet. Okay, so the Colgan Air accident basically rewrote all the ground rules for crew rest and basically qualified pilots. So like I said, the dirty little secret, okay, so the US has 2 qualified type rated people in the cockpit. Well guys, let me tell you, all the foreign carriers do not. So that's why they use a lot of US pilots in foreign carriers, because the guy sitting in the right seat, the first officer, might have as low as 200 hours. So the guy doesn't know how to fly the airplane. So there's literally one person in the cockpit. You remember Asiana that did the belly flop in San Francisco? Wow, that was pretty bad. There were 4 pilots in there. There was a captain doing his check ride with 2 other FOs in there. So nobody said anything. He was 30 knots slow, and even the check airman didn't even mention anything because, you know, they don't really believe in cockpit crew resource management, CRM. They don't want to disrespect the captain, which, hell, man, you got to tell me if something's going wrong. If you don't like it, that's the standard briefing in the cockpit. If you don't like what's going on, you need to tell me, because obviously I don't know what's going on, or either I'm dead. So that's the procedure that we have in the American Airlines. So all the foreign carriers, that's why all the accidents have been happening there for many, many years. And we have not had an aviation accident here since 2009, except for the helicopter hitting the commuter jet in DC, and, you know, the couple of other ones you heard, the Toronto one, and almost Southwest running into another jet with a runway incursion. So in the DC, like I did on another video, the DC Army helicopter pilots are trained well, but they don't get much time. So neither one of them was executing their mission properly. So I was the second night vision qualified class back in 1983, coming out of the Army. So we actually flew with the Anvis 5s. They were full face, so we had to point one tube outside and one tube inside and do an auto rotation to the ground. Wow, talk about confusing signals. So one was looking at the engine instruments with your near vision, and one was looking at the outside landing area with the other ones. Today now it's fully cut open. They're just goggles looking up. You can just flip them up. So the guy said he had the traffic in sight. He didn't even bother flipping up his goggles, obviously, to look out of his left window to see a huge landing airplane that's completely lit up. Wow, that's rookie mistake. So these are rookie pilots making really beginner mistakes. Okay, so that's why I want to tell you some of the dirty secrets in aviation. Be wary when you fly on foreign carriers. Wow, look in that cockpit. I'm not sure it's worth the cheaper ticket price. I'd be flying only on American carriers. Okay, Patriot Pilot out. See you guys. I'm going to go see what I'm going to do in Honolulu here, if we're going to go fly or not. Bye. So unfortunately, I had to put this video together in a couple of pieces because I was interrupted by the maid over in Honolulu, and now I'm back home, and I'm not flying right now, which is kind of nice. I had to do a couple of premium trips because they're actually short of pilots. So that's another dirty little secret about aviation. So I'll address the age first, since I just read the article from last year saying that the unions don't think there's a pilot shortage, but, well, you know, what can you say? The unions, even the our union, they have a tendency to vote Democrat, which, I don't know. If you can't see the numbers, they just have a tendency. So the actual numbers are, they need 20,000 pilots a year for the next 20 years in North America. They need 40,000 pilots in the next 20 years worldwide. And we're pretty much in the US the only ones that are producing pilots. So a lot of the industries, a lot of the cities have lost either 1/3, they said 524 places, cities have lost 1/3 of their routes. 50 plus have lost half of their routes. And like 8 cities have lost all their routes. So if that's not a pilot shortage, I don't know what is. And having a mandatory retirement age, which is actually very discriminatory, is the reason why. So last year I read an article in Piedmont about Piedmont Airlines, and they said they had approximately 100 airplanes on the ground with no pilots. So Piedmont and Envoy actually pay the pilots. This is their contract because they're so short pilots, but the unions don't want to recognize there's no shortage. Their contract is in 5 years. You are a captain at the commuter airline getting paid max pay, which is 12-year pay. And then they will give you 300 to 400% on top of that to fly the trip because they're so short. Well, I don't know. Are they short pilots? Or are they not? So now the commuters, if you can believe that, are actually making more money than the majors, at least until the end of 2026. So they're literally making $800 plus an hour, multiply $215 by 4. That's a pretty astronomical figure. My base salary is about $380. So the commuter guys are literally getting paid more than the majors. Wow, that's astonishing. But congrats to them, because guess what? That's the way they start. And my story is the flight attendant and I in 1996 got paid the same, $15 an hour. Yes, people, $15, and people actually made less than $15 an hour. And she got her training and lodging paid for. I had to pay $2,000 for lodging and $10,000 for training, and they would not give me the Saab 340 type rating because they wanted me unqualified so I wouldn't advance to the next airline. That's how much they penalized and punished pilots years ago, and that's the reason why there are not many pilots in the industry. So finally management figured out that, whoa, hey, those airplanes don't move without pilots. So for every job, there was 20 pilots before in 96. Now there's not enough pilots for every job that needs to be filled. So obviously that's another dirty secret, is they took the best pilots back then, most likely. Of course, there was some discrimination, and United did most of it because they got hammered by the EEOC, which is another little dirty little secret, which they had to actually backdate, I believe, 84 people and give them back seniority because they did blatant stuff like a Learjet female captain was training people on a type rating on the Learjet, and her students were getting hired at United, but she wasn't getting hired at United. Whoa, okay. And then they not only lowered the minimum hour requirement to like $250, they would hire the females and minorities at like a little bit over $250. Wow, that's crazy. That's dangerous. Now it's $1,500. And then at the end of their probation, they flunk them out. Ouch. That hurts. And, well, now they've gone completely woke and broke. I don't know. Hopefully not broke, because they'll be crashing airplanes. So I spoke with a female pilot at America West, about 15 years ago when they were doing this, 20 years ago. And the United actually has a cruise. That's what she told me. A cruise. A bunch of people that actually don't take off or land the airplane. What? I said, flying is not just straight and level. And the most obviously dangerous part, which is in my case the most interesting part, is taking off, and landing is obviously takeoff is voluntary. Landing is mandatory. So, wow. Another dirty little secret about aviation. So I actually started in the Army. I flew Hueys and Blackhawks, and then I transitioned and got all my certifications in fixed wing. I got 5 instructors ratings, CFI, II, and MEI in fixed wing, and CFI, II in helicopters with 2 ATPs. And the experience that I acquired took a long time, but yes, I'm very qualified. A lot of those problems are happening right now because basically the junior pilots with not that many hours, so you're replacing a guy like me with 20,000 plus hours with a guy with 2 or 3,000. And the crazy part in the commuters, and now it's happening in the majors because there's so many people retiring, they're forced captain upgrades. Wow. People don't want to upgrade, and they're forced to upgrade and take charge and command of the flight. That can't be too healthy. I mean, if you don't want to upgrade the captain and you don't feel like you're experienced enough, do not upgrade them to captain. That's the bottom line. I said, if somebody does not feel comfortable upgrading to captain, you do not upgrade them to captain. Does that make common sense? Yes, that does. So a lot of little dirty secrets. Okay, I addressed the retirement thing, and there's a lot more than that because you can see all the accidents are happening. You can see because of mainly inexperienced pilots. They have spatial disorientation. I think that's the one that crashed in Philly. They don't know how to land in marginal weather. Ooh, ouch. Toronto, flipped the airplane. Wow, cracked the wing off. We had one in Maui. We've had a couple of hard landings with new guys too. So those don't make the news. And then involuntary flap retraction on Maui. Ooh, they almost crashed it into the water. But you didn't hear about that. That was United. So I believe the FO retracted the flaps, but they're kind of, since nothing really happened, it's hard to get information on that stuff because they keep it pretty quiet. So they were taken off and they did a flap retraction too early, under speed. Wow, they almost hit the water. But incidents like this. So that's another little dirty secret about aviation is they don't tell you about the close calls. Yes, DCA. Wow, almost 1 million iterations in approximately landings in approximately October 21 to October 24. 15,000 near misses. Holy cow, from the NTSB. Wow, that's crazy. ASAP, can you imagine? That's the actual reporting system. Can you imagine how many pilots wrote ASAPs? Yes, probably thousands of them. I would have written an ASAP. But then they had 1,500 near misses. And they have a criteria for that. I think it's like a couple of 100 feet and, whoa, probably less than a mile. Wow, that's really close. And now they finally, so it's like drunk driving. You'll get away with it 9 out of 10 times, but that 10th time, man, you're going to get a DUI. So aviation accidents are a chain of events. The chain of events, You break it anywhere, you won't have the accident. So that's why we're constantly looking around, seeing what's going on. Yeah, experienced pilots, like I said, I understand that below 1,000 feet, that's helicopter country. And if you're not looking for helicopters, you're not doing the right stuff, especially when they're calling helicopter traffic. And in the military, okay, you know, these guys are pretty good at their experience level. The most I've seen a military pilot have is maybe 4,000 hours. They're still rookies. I'm telling you, even when you retire with a 20-year career flying, they don't know, I hate to see it, squat. With about 20 plus thousand hours, yeah, you get to see a couple of things. 4,000, you saw a couple of things, but that's a big difference. Let me tell you, I'm still learning at 20,000 hours. Yes, I'm learning stuff. And there's, like I said, a new crosswind landing technique I picked up at about 15,000 hours. I don't even adjust with the rudders before I land the airplane. I just land it a little bit cockeyed, and once I'm on the runway, I'll kick the pedal in and land the nose wheel gear. Guess what? That reduces all the drag on the backside of the airplane. So all that drag you get, and then you get when she's trying to kick that pedal over in Toronto, all that drag is actually making you descend faster. Yes. So I believe she hit 1,000 feet per second. Who knows? But I think 700 feet per second on both landing gears is basically, hold on, I'm getting a call. Oh, okay, so I got a call and I had to start this all over again, but okay, at 1,000 feet per second, or 1,000 feet per minute, and landing on one landing gear, if you do the wing down into the wing technique, yeah, I can see the why the wing fell off. But okay, so these are a lot of the dirty little secrets. I haven't covered all of them. Okay, with the foreign carriers, that's crazy in itself. The foreign carriers actually still have our old rules, which is they have pilots literally flying 200 hours in the right seat. So they're not type rated. So that's pretty crazy, because that 200-hour pilot doesn't even know how to land the airplane. And that's everywhere out of the United States. Wow. And some of the stories I've heard from some of the other pilots that have flown overseas, they don't trust these guys landing. So what is that? That's crazy. So if you're getting on a foreign carrier, that's why all the accidents before 2025 are overseas. We did not have an accident from 2009 to 2025. Wow, that's pretty unprecedented. And there's a reason for that, is because the crews are very experienced. And you need experienced crews because there's got to be at least one experienced pilot teaching the other pilot. And I was still learning at 10,000 hours. So when do you become proficient at something? 10,000 hours. You've heard of that before? 10,000 hours is actually when you become an expert at something. So those military pilots, okay. They study a lot, so maybe they're a little bit better, but you really don't become proficient at your profession unless you got 10,000 hours. Now, a lot of that stuff is book work, so it doesn't have to be all flying work, but still, 10,000 hours in the airplane, that's a lot of time. 10,000 hours in a helicopter, you're lucky if you're still alive. because that helicopter will literally beat you to death, especially the Huey. I used to tell people I used to be 6'3", but I'm only 6 feet now because that Huey beat me down 3 inches. But okay, that's pretty much what I got to say. Those are the main secrets about aviation. Wow, there's still a lot more, but I've covered the majority of them. Okay, thank you.